Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to the Week 9 edition of Establish the Run's First Look Show. Said it last week, we're almost halfway through the season. This week, come Sunday afternoon, we will be halfway through the regular season, which is just absolutely insane. I feel like we literally just started this season, and we're here in November 1st today, and we're really rolling right along. So much so that this is the most buys that we've had in a season, and this is the smallest slate that we've had so far this season. This is a 10-game slate, meaning there's 2 additional teams on bye this week, and I think it's the ugliest slate of the season, if I'm being honest. Not too many matchups I am looking forward to necessarily this week. Some interesting fantasy spots that we'll talk about throughout this show, but it's definitely a tight week on DraftKings. An interesting slate from a numbers-wise, matchups-wise, all that stuff. Just to recap quickly, the purpose of this show is to kind of transition us from one week to another, get a quick first glance, position by position, at the plays that we're considering for the coming week, and how to maybe be approaching this slate just early on to get our heads in that right mindset. So we'll dive right in with that, talking about a couple of teams off this slate right off the top. So I mentioned only a 10-game slate. So teams on buys. The Browns, they played last night. The Giants, Cowboys, Steelers, 49ers. Okay. So not major teams out of there. Obviously, the Cowboys have some skill position guys that we've been attacking. Giants have Saquon Barkley. 49ers have some guys, Christian McCaffrey, that we've been attacking. Nick Chubb's off this slate. But more importantly, the primetime teams that are on this slate, Eagles and Texans play Thursday night, so no Jalen Hurts on this slate. Titans Chiefs play Sunday night, so no Derrick Henry, no Patrick Mahomes, no Travis Kelce, etc. And then Ravens Saints play Monday night, so we take Lamar Jackson, and Mark Andrews off of this slate, as well as Alvin Kamara. And so, there are a lot of players off the slate. And what I've really noticed kind of going through here is that DraftKings has really tightened up these prices the last couple of weeks. There's not that much value that jumps out at you right off the gate. Not too many cheap quarterback plays that I feel great about like I did last week. We'll talk about that in a minute here. But it's definitely a spot that is worthy of diving into and thinking critically about throughout the week. That said, we'll start right at quarterback. The only other thing, once again, not too many super high-end over-unders on this week. There's one 50-point game total right now. That is the Seahawks Cardinals at 4:00. Seems like the Seahawks are always in these 50-point game totals. So that's one. And then you have a couple 49. So the Chargers Falcons, that's at 1:00. That's a 49.5. That's one we're going to talk about here in a minute. And then Packers Lions, also 49. Seems like any team that's playing the Lions is going to get up close to 50. And that's about it on the main slate as far as high over-unders. We're right back again in that mid-tier. So figuring out which game might go over or which game to attack will be pertinent. All right, so diving right in at quarterback here. We mentioned some of the main guys off this slate. So we're definitely, we lead the way with Josh Allen, who is certainly in a tier of his own. Coming off his worst game of the year, fantasy-wise, against the Packers on Sunday night. Still had his 218-2, did throw 2 picks, still had his 50 yards on the ground. Like, if this is a floor game for Josh Allen, I feel totally fine. Obviously, they raised his price all the way back up to $8,500 here, which is his most expensive on the season. But he is playing the Jets. Jets are at home, coming off a tougher loss to New England. This is obviously another tough spot for them. And the one thing the Jets really do have is a very strong defensive line, strong front seven. I don't know if they'll be able to get pressure on Josh Allen consistently, but if it does, I'm not necessarily sure it's a bad thing. If Allen uses his legs more, I'm fine with that. And especially when you consider he's got a floor ceiling combo to himself this week, pretty much with Jalen Hurts and Lamar and Mahomes off this slate. I think Allen will be the spend up guy I want to get to. The thing is, it's going to be very hard at 8,500. So if he's going to come in under own because of the price or anything like that, that's something that I will be forcing my way into plenty of double stacks with Josh Allen. Underneath him, you have Kyler Murray, 7,400. He's throwing. They're certainly throwing a lot. They find themselves in all these close games, 1-score games, basically. Coming off another loss here. Now they're in division at home against Seattle. Seattle's defense has played much better of late. But this is, as I mentioned, it's the only 50-point over-under on the slate. He's coming off a near 30-point game. If they're playing from behind, that's how we like Kyler. I think Kyler's in a pretty interesting spot here, and I don't think people are going to go to him that much. I don't think people like going to Kyler Murray these days with Cliff Kingsbury and all of that. I mean, I get it. It's hard to want to invest in this Cardinals offense. I completely understand that. But I do think that not many people will be going to him. So I think Kyler's in play for me for sure this week. I'm definitely interested in Justin Herbert though. So they're coming off a bye. That's one more week for those ribs to heal up, whatever he's been dealing with. Obviously, the Chargers have been largely disappointing this year. We expected big things. They have one of the most talented rosters, both on offense and defense in the league. Brandon Staley seems like a very unimpressive coach at this point in his young career. And there's lots to not like about Justin Herbert and the Chargers going into week 9 here. What there is to like is that he's the third most expensive quarterback on the slate without all those quarterbacks that we had mentioned prior. And coming off the bye, and they get the Falcons. The Falcons have been a team that we like to pick on for sure. This is in Atlanta, in the Dome. I think this is a really strong Herbert spot in the Charger spot. And he's 7,200. You get a discount on Kyler. You get a big discount on Allen. And I get we haven't seen the major ceiling game this year, but we know Justin Herbert has those in his bag. So if they come out refreshed, strong game plan out of the bye, I think this could be a really strong spot to attack for Justin Herbert. So that's kind of the quarterback that in that top tier saves you a little money that I'm interested in the most. Oh, sorry about that. For sure. And as I get this stuff back up here, excuse me, I'll just keep talking as I do this. So that's what I'm interested in the most for sure. And then other than that, you got Tua underneath that, I guess, against the Bears. Yeah, I think that's okay. He's been good. He was really good again this past week. I'm like, the Bears have been playing much better. Obviously, they just traded off Roquan Smith as well. Like, they're clearly not in a position where they care about winning very much right now. But they are okay here. So I don't know. Tua's all right. He's a little expensive for me, though, for 6,700. And it seems like this, back on the road in Chicago. This isn't the Detroit week. This isn't that Baltimore week to me. I think he has high 20s in there. Obviously, you like the stack options on a shorter week with less options, but I'd rather go to Joe Burrow right underneath that. Burrow coming off a really disappointing game last night at home. On the road in Cleveland on Monday night. Obviously does not have his main weapon in Jamar Chase. I think he's an interesting spot to go back to. What I was meant to say is they're back at home this week against a Carolina team that we know we can throw on a little bit. And he's only 6,600. They did raise his stack options in Higgins and Boyd. We'll talk about them in a minute. But if he'll fall through the cracks at all here, I'm definitely willing to invest in Burrow. And then under Burrow, there isn't that much that I'm interested in this week. You got Cousins at home again in Washington. Cousins has just not been that guy this year, even in true doubles, right? Even on these 1 o'clock home slates. I thought last week was like the perfect Kirk Cousins spot. And he still only got to 24.48. I would probably hand build a couple Cousins doubles this week. I don't think he makes my pool for my large field GPP stuff. How do we invest in Tom Brady right now? They're at home against the Rams. The Rams are not the Rams of last year. There's no doubt about that, but it's still, their offensive line's bad. Clearly not the same quarterback this year. I'm good on Brady. Rodgers would be the first week that I would actually go to Rodgers, but we've been saying it all year. Look at this. He's been very consistent this year. No doubt about that, but he's been right around 15 through 17 DraftKings points every single week. It's really crazy how bad he's been, how I guess lackluster the Packers offense has been in general. But if there's ever a week to get right, it's Detroit, right? Obviously, they are the team we want to pick on through the air every week. We just saw Tua Chalk get there this past week in the same matchup. I think I will include some Aaron Rodgers this week. And then the other sub 6K option would be Geno Smith against the Cardinals in that 50.5 game total. He's just been great. He's been great. There's no doubt about it. It's in division. It's an easy matchup. So there you go. And then Justin Fields would be the other guy I think you can consider. You've been able to pass on them through the air. I have to capitulate here. I was talking to our ETR folks in Slack, and then when Malik Willis came on the slate and when Sam Ehlinger came on the slate last week, I was saying Justin Fields in Dallas against that front seven should not be considered this week. And he was the optimal quarterback last week. So capitulation on my part on Justin Fields. And he looked like a much better quarterback the past 2 weeks, a much better quarterback, both in the air and obviously what he can do on the ground. So he looks more in command, looks more comfortable. I think Eberflus is hitting a little bit of a stride there with Chicago. So you get it at home against a Miami team that we've been throwing on all year. I think Fields is in play for tournaments, and that pretty much cuts off my quarterback pool from there. You still have Ehlinger at 5K against New England. Now that it's not 4K, I'm not really interested. All right. I think that does it on quarterbacks. Yeah, not that interesting of a week. Look, I'm interested in playing up for these top 3 guys. I like Burrow. I'll throw Rodgers in a little bit in case this is the week, and then I'm going to go down to some Fields, and that's probably where I'm looking this week at quarterback. All right, Running back, Eckler, very clearly the spend up option of the week. Same matchup I was talking about before. This is a good matchup with Atlanta. We just saw Deontay Foreman kind of just go crazy all over this Atlanta team. 4.5 yards a carry, 118 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. No interest in Eckler. Yeah, good on you, One Eye Jack, on Fields last week. Congratulations to anyone that had that foresight for sure. Dalvin Cook, once again, we saw one of the high-end Dalvin Cook games this past week, and still couldn't result in a 30 ball. And when you're talking about all of these running backs this year that I'm getting these 30, 35, 40-point performances with Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, Austin Eckler, 28 points is not going to cut it when you're the second highest running back on the slate. This isn't as easy as a matchup as he had against Arizona last week. It's fine against Washington. Not like amazing. I think Cook's just okay this week. Taylor is as cheap as you'll ever see him at 7,700. I mean, he's finally dipped below 8K, but this is a game in New England. New England's run defense has been pretty good. I don't know. I mean, yeah, except for that Chicago game, right? So maybe. I think Taylor should make tournament pools for sure. We haven't seen it yet this year besides week 1. He had a 30-point game, and I was all the way down to 7,700. I'm sure no one's going to play him. I think that's okay. Love Aaron Jones, though. He ran all over Buffalo this past week, not to any avail. 7.2 yards a carry. They still lost the game. But, we want to attack Detroit in every area of the defense. And considering Aaron Jones, look at the target share, 5, 10, 4, 3. Considering he gets it done in the air as well, seems like a very strong Aaron Jones spot, 7,400. Definitely one of my spend-up running back options of the week. And then Josh Jacobs as well. We'll keep going back to here. They lowered his price now down a little bit from 7,500 to 7,300, coming off his worst game of the year statistically. Obviously, he had those 3 monstrous games right in between there. And yeah, the Raiders offense just did not show up. I don't know what to do with this Raiders offense. How do you get shut out in New Orleans? I don't understand it. It's kind of insane. He'll make my pool this week. I'm not getting super invested in many Raiders guys, but kind of think about that throughout the week and see how ownership stuff comes in there. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bounce back against Jacksonville. Jacksonville's coming off London. They don't have the bye right off London. It's in Jacksonville. I don't know. It's a tough one to think into there. Fournette's another tough one that I question the ceiling these days. Yes, the pass game rolls there, but Rachaad White's eating in a little bit more and more, and I'm concerned about the Tampa Bay offense. Joe Mixon, for sure, we thought last night was going to be a huge game, and he did have the roll through the air. 7 catches on 9 targets for 32 yards, but that's a problem. Just 32 yards, didn't find the end zone, was not efficient on the ground. And yes, he has this role, and it's a solid matchup here against Carolina. I don't know. I think at 6,500, he's okay. It's too cheap for what the role is. One of these games, Mixon's going to burst up like crazy. I like him more in Burrow stuff, I think, with correlation there, but Mixon's fine as a one-off play as well. Swift did come back, did save the day by finding the end zone a little bit, at least to not completely bomb out, but wasn't getting anywhere close to an optimal lineup with all the running backs that exploded once again. The problem is Jamal Williams. We're still seeing him be the goal line guy. He scored another 2 touchdowns this past week. He's eating into the workload a little too much for my liking. I want to be a week early on the big Swift game. I don't know if it's against Green Bay this week. ETN's a great play, though. You get Jacksonville. You get the Raiders at home. We just saw what Alvin Kamara did to this team, also at home. No James Robinson in his way anymore. We have an elite workload, elite production. Now, this is 4 straight games between 6.5 and 8.6 yards per carry. Another 24 carries for 156 yards against the Denver Broncos, who we thought had a pretty good defense going into this year. This past week in London, found the end zone, is involved in the passing game. He's going to be chalky, I would imagine, at 6,300. Not high enough for what his floor ceiling combo is, but that's a play for sure. Keep going now, though. There's more plays, right? Kenneth Walker, now he's down to 6,200 coming off 65, gets Arizona. Kenneth Walker's definitely a good play. Mostert as well against the Bears. I think that's a strong play. He's seems to be an every other week guy right now. And if that means that this is a week that you want to go there, I would have no problem with that. Montgomery versus Herbert. Herbert is a much better player. He's eating into the role right now. I kind of want to avoid that situation if I can. Foreman, though, my God. We just mentioned him before. Now against the Cincinnati team. Nick Chubb, I get that Deontay Foreman is not Nick Chubb, but you know what? Deontay Foreman is the real first success story off the Achilles tear. And it's remarkable. So he is the guy that I'm interested in the low 6s this week. Mentioned Nick Chubb running all over Cincinnati last night. Clearly, Carolina wants to be run heavy. Clearly, they want to keep it on the ground with him. Carolina looks better overall as a team that can move the ball over the last couple of weeks. So you have that. Let's wait and see on what the Arizona situation is. A running back, still the guy there, but Darrell was back this past week. If you're playing into that game, I'd want correlation there in secondary stacks or something like that for those running backs. I just think it might be a little bit thin. Singletary can make a pool. I think Michael Carter can make a player pool as well against Buffalo. We mentioned Aaron Jones did to them. James Robinson will start eating it a little more. He had 5 carries, but I still think it's going to be Michael Carter's backfield as the true alpha there. If you want run backs on the Chargers stack stuff, let's wait and see. I think Damian Williams may be due back this week or next week. He's due back soon. Cordell Patterson is eligible to come off IR this week, so I think he's going to be back. If you want to try to be a week early on Patterson, I think that's fine. I don't know. Let's hear about his workload and everything like that, but assuming he's playing, you could do that. But I think I'd rather go to one of the receivers or Pitts as the bring back there. So let's talk a little about receivers. You got the tier right at the top. Once again, this is your main tier: Kupp, Jefferson, Hill, and Diggs. Kupp did tweak his ankle this past week. McVay says he's going to play. I don't know if I'm going there at 8,900 against Tampa Bay. Maybe. I mean, he'll make a player pool. No one's going to really play him. He's fine. Definitely like Jefferson against Washington, though. That's the spot you want to attack Washington through the air. Their alphas can go off against them. 2 straight weeks now of just fine performances. We're two weeks separated from these 30-point balls. Those are always in the range of outcomes here for him. Tyreek Hill, it's hilarious. He doesn't find the end zone except for one game this season, and he's still 30 points nearly in 3 of those games that he doesn't find the end zone. Another 34.5, 12 for 188 this past week. His roll's better on Miami than it was on Kansas City. It's insane. Sign me up with Tyreek Hill. I have no problem with it. Diggs, plenty of Diggs. Again, in the Allen stuff, just keep in mind, it's a tough matchup against Sauce Gardner. I obviously had all the kind of chirping with Jair Alexander this past week. That's a tough matchup with those Jets outside corners. There's no doubt about it. I think I just want to give Adams the benefit of the doubt that he was playing with the flu this past week and that the Raiders offense in general just didn't show up to work. So let's give them another chance here. I think 8,100 is cheap for what his ceiling is. He had a 30 ball only 3 weeks ago. Do it that way you will. Hopkins' role since he's been back, absolutely elite. 13 targets, 14 targets each of the last 2 weeks. Got there again in a big way against Minnesota. Don't mind the matchup with Seattle. Yes, Seattle's defense has been better. I think Hopkins at home is a very strong sub 8K play this week. I like Kyler Hopkins' skinnies quite a bit, actually. Waddle, same thing. Had another week this past week where him and Tyreek got there. It wasn't the optimal double stack like it was in week 2, like a large Sarge was talking about, but was certainly optimal to win a tournament for sure, or viable rather. Higgins, they bring his price up from what we're used to it at the mid 6s because he is the alpha there, because he is the wide receiver 1. I think it's fine. 7,300. It's not like the 79 8K that we're getting Chase at. We always talk about how the talent discrepancy between Higgins and Chase is not that wide. T. Higgins is a fantastic, excellent NFL wide receiver. I have no problem with him at 7,300 this week. And I hope that the raised price would keep people off him a little bit. He's going to project very well though. So I wouldn't expect that, but I think that the Bengals doubles are in play this week. Evans deals with Ramsey, mostly a pass for me, but he'll be involved. That game is just, it could come back to bite me, but if the game doesn't seem like one I really want to attack out of the gate, does the Rams Bucks, which is crazy because if this was like any of the last 2 years, that'll be one of the top games we're talking about on this slate, but both teams are just not the same teams that they've been over the last couple of years. Davis deals with a similar situation to Diggs with that tough outside Jets receivers, but in Bill's stuff, I certainly want plenty. I think I like McKenzie in the middle of the field. I like Knox in the middle of the field for that kind of stuff. Read and listen to all of our other content for Bills stuff this week, but the Bills are the best team in the league. Pittman is 6,800 against the Patriots. That's okay. Ellinger started throwing a little bit in the second half. He was targeting Pittman. Pittman could have had a much bigger day, I believe. I'd rather attack New England through the air. I think that's all fine. Amon-Ra against the Packers did get his 10 targets last week. So I think him being involved in like Adam Levitan's cash lineup and being involved with cash was not the wrong move. Did only result in 14 DraftKings points. Gets Green Bay here, which doesn't really scare you that much. We saw Diggs have plenty of success and these other Bills guys on Sunday night. I think Amon-Ra is okay. Keenan Allen. So he was the guy I put in the cover video, and then I didn't see by the time I had made that he actually missed practice on Monday. I'm going to guess that this is not something we should be too concerned about, that it's more maintenance rise. We had a week of the bye to heal up once more. And now you got no Mike Williams in a matchup at 6,500 that I'm going to be attacking here quite a bit. I want to be a week early on Keenan here. I want to be a week early. I think he's going to be full this week or close to full. But let's keep an eye on practice reports. If he plays and if he's practicing by Wednesday, Thursday, I want a lot of Keenan Allen this week. I want a lot at 6,500. There's not a lot of value on the slate. Keeps your options open. Fine. I'm interested in both Seattle receivers once again this week. And then Tyler Boyd, they did the same thing as Higgins. They brought him back. They brought him up from his low 5K, so low 6K. I think that's okay. Similar to Higgins. I prefer Higgins with the increased price tag, but I think he's good in doubles. And then Terry McLaurin's a guy I really like sub 6K. The role with Taylor Heineke is just so much better than the role with Carson Wentz. Play a lot of Terry McLaurin. It's a good matchup as well. DJ Moore also been back to what we expect from DJ Moore. We saw Amari Cooper have success against Cincinnati last night. This matchup doesn't really scare me very much. Cincinnati just had a cornerback injury I saw this morning. And him, same thing. Since PJ Walker is coming to town, major role. So while there's not that much value under 5K, there is some 6K value. So Moore and McLaurin, I think, are interesting. Kirk can make a player pool. We saw Dobbs bounce back here. It's a great matchup against Detroit. Wouldn't mind attacking Dobbs or Lazard or some of these Packers receivers and tight ends. And then Rondale Moore is 5,200. He broke into the house to put himself on the map. Middle of the 1 o'clock games this past week. He's always a guy that concerns me a little bit with the ceiling, but if you're going to get this around 24 or 25 points at 5,200 on a tight week, that might be what you want. Then I mentioned McKenzie already, and I mentioned London as a guy to maybe use as a bring back in the Chargers. Anything else under 5K, I'd recommend subscribing to ETR DFS package if you haven't already. Check out our cheap wide receiver volume article that will come out on Thursday. Tight end is bleak. When Zach Ertz is your most expensive tight end at 5,100, you know you have a problem. Good matchup for Zach Ertz. I think it's fine. I really question the Zach Ertz ceiling this year, but I guess if there's a week to attack it, it's this. He's more expensive. People aren't going to play him, and it's a good matchup. Play him in correlation. I think this really clearly seems like a punt tight end week to me. But other options to consider. Keep an eye on Waller. What's going on there? I don't think I'm going there necessarily, even if he plays. Maybe. Everett would definitely be a guy I want. Plenty of, no Mike Williams. Target share will increase. I'm playing a lot of Chargers as is. Pitts on the other side of that. We finally saw a respectable Kyle Pitts game. 9 targets, 5 for 80 and a touchdown. He would be my favorite bring back for Atlanta. Mentioned Tunyon. Really like Tunyon a lot this week. Of my 3K tight ends, he might be my favorite. You got Detroit. That speaks for itself. We saw Gesicki have a touchdown against them. And this is with, Tunyon's not dealing with Hill and Waddle stealing targets from him on the outside. He's becoming more comfortable with Rodgers every single week. He's further away from that injury. He's good. Hurst would make a pool, of course. Didn't get much done on Monday night last night, but we know the role is there for Hayden Hurst. And then, I'll probably just be looking to punt as much as I can here at tight end this week. So, Foster Moreau would be in play again if there was no Waller. I think Otton's in play again with no Brait. He's 3,100. Kmet, you can make an argument for, I guess, as maybe he'll finally do something, but he's just done absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I saw Dwayne McFarland tweet out yesterday that Greg Dulcich has more fantasy points than Cole Kmet in 2 games or whatever Dulcich has played. And then, Fant's a sub K, 2K, they'll be your typical punts again. Granson sub 3K. I think you can take some of these guys, depending on role, depending on injuries throughout the week, and plug and play a punt tight end. That should just about do it for our week 9 first look. As I mentioned, not the most attractive slate off the top. There are some stacks you want to attack, but there's nothing like, man, I got to jam these guys in. I'm curious if it spreads ownership around a little bit compared to the mega chalk we've seen at running back. There's no Tony Pollard mispriced guy jumping off the page of you this week. So definitely keep an eye and ear and nose, I guess, out for all of our other content here at Establish the Run. Ton of great stuff coming this week for you, including Adam and Evan have the team-by-team pods to kind of dive into the weeds a little bit more later today. If you're an NBA fan, or an NBA DFS player, or an NBA regular season-long fantasy player, cannot recommend our NBA ETR product enough. I'm proud to be on that team. We are grinding every single day, every single decimal point for projections on DFS stuff. We have a props package as well that we are still doing very, very well with. Definitely check out ETR NBA DFS, ETR NBA props package. We have Drew Dinkmeyer, Mike Gallagher, the best in the business, myself involved there. Can't recommend it enough. Wish you all the best of luck in week 9. Crazy. Let's go out there and win some money, everybody. Good luck.